Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Rudy, you have one of the most unique accents of anyone
Hmm.
I've ever spoken with. And initially, it was tough to pin down. Obviously, I did a little
Hmm.
bit of research, and I want to
Yeah.
say thanks to your neighbor, Robert England. Do you ever go over and see his turtle collection in the backyard?
Not the turtle collection, not yet. But I do get to hang out with this puppy, Nutella.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
go puppy walking once in a while.
T-
My
tell me
puppy and his puppy.
Tell me briefly about migrating from Cuba to the USA as a preteen. I could imagine it's one thing if you're, 4 or 5, 6, and it's all you really ever known. But as a preteen, you've already started to plant some roots in Cuba, and then you're uplifted and moved to the US. How difficult was that?
Yeah, yeah. I think that one of the most difficult elements about it is that we were not immigrants; we were refugees,
Okay,
which
right,
meant
right.
that once you become a refugee, in our case, we lost our Cuban citizenship. So it was not a situation. First of all, we were fleeing communism.
Yeah,
Okay, and this is at a time where things were pretty intense between
absolutely.
Cuba, the United States, and Russia.
Hmm.
After we left, that they had these photos of nuclear missiles pointing at the U.S.
Mm,
in Cuba,
mm,
which hence that's where the embargo comes from. That's where the October missile crisis
yep.
comes from. So my family left between Bay of Pigs and missile crisis, and we came to the United States knowing that we're not going to go back until things are resolved. So
Hmm.
we're refugees. We have no plan B.
Yeah.
There's no plan B of going back if things doesn't work out in the United States,
So you had to go
And
back.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No.
So and plus we couldn't even leave because we lost our passport was null and void because we lost our Cuban citizenship
Mhm.
officially as soon as we left,
Yeah.
and we filed for refugee status. We
Right.
came to the United States with all the paperwork, visas and passports, and we had somebody to claim us. And it was a process that took my family almost a year and a half,
Hmm.
to get everything done. And so my experience was a little. Again, I was about to turn 11. This is in 1961. So I came to the United States of about a couple of months, 2 or 3 months shy of turning 11. So here I am in Cuba and things are normal. I am Cuban. Everybody else is Cuban. I don't care if they were Chinese or Polish that came over from World War II, fleeing, Nazism, or Italians or whatever. It's just like, hey, we're all Cubans here. And then all of a sudden, so which meant that we're all, there's no little checkbox,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that you are this or that. And. So once I arrived in the United States, all of a sudden I found myself as a minority, really minority, because we're
Yeah.
talking about 60 years ago,
Hmm.
and then we were relocated to New Jersey. Uh, Within a couple of years because there's more of an influx of Cubans coming in, and it was like Miami at the time. There was no industry
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
This is 60 years ago. It was either you're working a hotel, tourism, and that's about it. There was
Yeah.
really nothing. My dad used to work at these companies that would build boats, fiberglass boats. One of the worst jobs you could ever have, because
Yeah.
today that would not be allowed. The way that he would go in a tank
Sure.
to
The fumes.
sandblast
Yeah.
fiberglass. He would come home with his
Yeah.
pores being filled with fiberglass. But that was then. So
Mm.
we moved to New Jersey, and that's where I really felt the little boxes, because all of a sudden there's different neighborhoods in West New York. You had the Italians live in this block, and the Irish and Jewish live here, and
How
very little
crazy is
Latinos at the
that?
time. Yeah.
Wow.
So I experienced that for the first time, because now we're not all Americans.
Hmm.
This is 60 years ago. We are, you are Irish or you are Italian or whatever, right? And that transfer over to school. So in school, it was the same thing. You
Hmm.
had all these segmented kids. There was fracture,
Yeah.
the whole social environment in school, until 1964, Beatles and Ed Sullivan. Overnight,
Wow.
overnight,
It brought
we went
everybody
from
together with a commonality of this is cool. We can all agree on this.
yeah. All of a sudden, we're all vibrating with the same frequency.
Wow.
We went from combing our hair back to getting our bangs, which meant it was like instant identification. Oh, you too, huh?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the Beatles; it was the Stones and the Kinks and the Animal. Every week, you had something to talk about, some new song to learn, some new chord to learn. What's that progression these guys are playing? So now you're in bands with all these different cultural backgrounds, and that to me, that was the shift.
Yeah. How exciting. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a big foodie. What's your favorite Cuban food? And do you cook Cuban food at home?
Let's say in Cuba and early in Miami, when I was living with my parents, everything was lard based.
Yeah.
That's
not incredibly healthy.
No, not at all. And so I was a very fat little kid. So, it was like 3 full meals, and then you got to have a midnight snack before you go to bed. Midnight, it's kind of like, don't go to bed with an empty stomach because you might die. You might starve to death in your sleep.
Wow.
That was then, we know a little bit better now.
Did you ever develop an affection for Cuban cigars or the rum? I mean, obviously here in the U.S., that's what we think about when we think of Cuba, like, the cigars and the rum, aside from, the whole communism thing. But
about 30 years ago, I went down to the border past Tijuana, of California and Mexico with my wife and some friends. And we wound up in this little beach town, and I just went nuts, and I found there was a convenience store that had Cuban cigars. So I smoked a Cohiba, got deathly ill from it. And that was it.
That's it. Okay.
Done.
I'm curious, out of your collection, I see a guitar there on your, I guess, your right shoulder. What's your go-to bass out of all I'm sure the basses you must own? What's the go-to?
I don't have a go-to bass because
Really?
I do a lot of tracking for different projects, and I cast my basses.
Okay,
they're like characters.
Sure, I'm sure a P bass is going to sound different than a Thunderbird. That's going to sound different than a.
Oh yeah, very much. But yeah, I have all my basses are very special. Like I have a 66 P bass that Frankie gave me. Actually, he gave it to me, Frankie Benelli, the day he told me that he has been diagnosed, with a stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So it was a very bittersweet moment.
Yeah.
When he gave me the bass, because at that moment, I couldn't even wrap my head around him giving me this wonderful instrument as a gift. All I was concerned was his health, and his future, and his family, and but with time is becoming definitely my most special bass. I also have a 59 precision, and I have Thunderbird, I got Hofner's, of course I have my own Spectre signature model, and I have Yamaha, I got Rickenbacker right here, I got my acoustic signature bass from Sawtooth.
If Gibson, you look out at my loft right now, it almost looks exactly like your background did with the gig bags laying all over the place. This is a really tough question, but I'm curious. Who, in your opinion, do you think is the best bassist that's ever lived, or who has inspired you the most?
Oh, inspired me the most. I mean, there's so many for so many reasons. What is the best? I see my idea of the best is through the years. When you're young, you're very impressed by technique or fireworks coming from a musician, but especially as a performer. It's a little bit different. But to me, the best musicians are the ones who try the best that they can be themselves, that push themselves to the limit, think outside the box, bring in something new, something fresh. It's all about the ones with the unique personal perceptions
Okay.
of what the instrument can achieve, you know.
Mhm.
And there's so many. I mean, I can give you anybody from Jaco Pastorius to Stanley Clark, Billy Sheehan, Modern Times, Victor Wooten, Steve Bailey. I mean, we could spend
Hours
hours
just
me
talking about that.
mentioning them, because these musicians, and to me, it has mostly not just to do with technique, but their choice of notes,
Yeah.
what they're saying.
Mhm.
It's like if you watch a really fulfilling, rewarding movie, and I say rewarding because you don't feel like you wasted your time watching this thing. It's all about the dialogue, the
Yeah.
script. It's not about blowing things up. As a matter of fact, I spend a lot of time on planes, and if I want to go to sleep, I'll play a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on in a Marvel movie. Not a whole lot of dialogue, but just things blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
that will put me to sleep. Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of what you're saying. We toured with King's X way back in the day on the Faith Hope Love tour, and being able to hear Doug Pennick and his unique sound, his percussive playing ability, and how he spoke through the bass was a real treat as a young man in the music business. Trying
I
to
love
find my
Doug.
own sound and figure out how he did that. One last question. Oh, and by the way, I thought it was fascinating. You're into computer digital animation. Did this just start as a hobby? I mean, you actually have a career doing that on the side, yeah?
Well, I've done projects that myself, starting with a pixel and creating, this whole, presentation or presentations, and so I did it. Actually, what really got me into it is because I spend more time working with computers. When digital media was at its infancy, and I mean like the very beginning of like people writing software for creators,
Right.
And I'm talking about audio especially, and then video just came right after. There was certain software that came out that really were written by musicians for musicians, and that really captured my imagination because I could see 25 years ago what's happening today.
Yeah.
I could see it. It was a natural. I mean, if I look back 25 years prior to me, I go, okay, this happened, and right now I happen to be in the middle of a point that has a continuation, and this follow the bouncing ball. This is gonna turn into that, and so I got immediately involved with digital media. There was a program called Acid that was it was loop based, the first bass loop, the first loop based software that you can actually drop in loops, and then of course if they make the software, they're going to need a library. So they contacted me and asked me to build what is called the working men's bass, the Acid first loop bass library, and I did that. And I still have all the Acid programs and everything. I was very much involved, with their research of how to improve it, because every year you got to come up with a new version, bring it in at NAMM. And then that went from Sonic Foundry. It became Sony Media bought it, and then somebody else, I think it's Magix Software company. So there's been evolution. And then, of course, if you're going to use Acid, you have to jump into either Logic, which was my first digital audio workstation. And then I jumped over to Pro Tools because Pro Tools was also PC friendly. So I was going between both, but then Pro Tools didn't have the MIDI capabilities that Logic did. And so anyways, Avid, owner of Pro Tools, had a software called Soft Image, a 3D software, right? So Avid had Avid for editing videos, Pro Tools for the music, and then Soft Image for the special effects and 3D animation. So they trained me
Very cool.
I
That's
I
awesome.
was trained by all of the major people at the company Softimage, and then Softimage got sold to to Autodesk, who were the creators of 3ds Max, which I've used prior to that. Then they bought Maya, another software, and Softimage, and so yeah, I got really deep into it. I make some great friends in the computer generated world, and but I was doing most of that creative projects due to that I was wearing glasses. This is me pre LASIX,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it got to a point that I couldn't really clearly see my strings and without my glasses, and my vision, like around here, was really poor. And then I got LASIX, and it was like, whoa, this is great.
That's cool.
And so so I got deeper into going back to music. So I really don't do that much CG because it's
Okay.
all about music right now. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on everything, Rudy. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. I do have one final question for you. Being a world traveler, if not in the United States, what other country, what other area would you choose to retire?
Oh, retire. First of all, I can't even wrap my head around retiring. So
I
that's
know,
kind of
right?
like, whoa, what? What? I've traveled so much that I mean, I can tell you countries I love. I love Europe. I love South America. I mean, of course, Europe is not a country.
Right. No, I hear you.
But I just couldn't pick one.
Yeah.
I love the world, and then I hope to be able to go back someday and at least visit, not as a tourist, but I hope to get my Cuban citizenship back
Yeah.
in my own country, because I refuse to visit the country of my birth as a tourist, because I am
don't
not,
blame you.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Hey, Rudy, have a great rest of your week, man. And again, thanks to Robert England for helping set this thing up. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope we have an opportunity to meet again. I mean, it's been many years since that young kid went to the bass clinic that you did in San Antonio, and I would love just to hang out with you as an adult musician.
So looking forward to seeing you again in person.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Take care.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
You too. Bye-bye.